Imagine a world before Athens, before Socrates, before the Parthenon, a time of myth and legend. This is the Greek Bronze Age from 3200 to 1100 BC, when metalworkers first created bronze, sparking the rise of entire civilizations. Bronze meant stronger tools, sharper weapons, and treasures for kings, fueling the birth of ancient Greece. This era inspired Homer's epic tales, Achilles, Odysseus, the Trojan War. For centuries, these were thought to be just myths, until archaeologists uncovered palaces and citadels that matched the stories. Suddenly, myth blurred into history. Two great powers ruled the Aegean, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, sophisticated societies with kings, priests, armies, and vast trade networks. They traded with Egypt and the Near East, built massive structures, and developed writing systems. But around 1200 BC, this world collapsed in one of history's greatest disasters. Palaces burned, cities emptied, and writing vanished for centuries. How did these civilizations rise, and why did they fall? We'll explore the vibrant Minoan palaces of Crete and the fortified Mycenaean citadels on the mainland. This isn't just archaeology, it's a journey into the heart of a lost world that shaped our own. The adventure begins now. Our journey starts on Crete, home to Europe's first great civilization, the Minoans. Named for King Minos, the Minoans flourished from 2700 BC, building sprawling palaces like Knossos and Phaistos. These palaces were administrative, religious, and economic centers, multi-story complexes with hundreds of rooms and grand courtyards. Minoan art celebrated life frescoes of dolphins, saffron gatherers, and bull-leaping acrobats. Their pottery was decorated with octopuses and flowers, reflecting a love of beauty and nature. The Minoans were master seafarers, controlling Aegean trade routes and connecting Egypt, the Near East, and Europe. Archaeologists have found copper, ivory, tin, and precious stones from across the ancient world in Minoan sites. In return, they exported pottery, textiles, olive oil, and wine. Palaces stored these goods in massive jars, redistributing wealth through a complex bureaucracy. The Minoan palaces were engines of a thriving, peaceful civilization that dominated the seas for centuries. Their legacy is one of beauty, innovation, and connection. One of the greatest Minoan mysteries is their writing. They used two scripts, an early hieroglyphic and the enigmatic Linear A, found on hundreds of clay tablets. Linear A remains undeciphered, leaving much of their language and society a mystery. We rely on art and archaeology to understand them. Minoan art features women as priestesses and central figures, suggesting high status for women and possibly a matrilineal society. Their main deity was a powerful nature goddess, often shown with snakes or animals. Unlike later societies, Minoan palaces lacked massive fortifications, and their art rarely depicted war. This led to the idea of a Minoan peace, where naval power kept the Aegeans safe for trade and culture. Yet they had weapons and dangerous rituals like bull leaping, hinting at a complex society beneath the peaceful surface. The lack of fortifications may reflect security on their island, not utopian peace. Minoan society was likely more nuanced than legend suggests. Still, their focus on art, nature, and trade set them apart from their contemporaries. The Minoans remain a beautiful enigma in ancient history. The Minoan Golden Age ended in disaster. Around 1600 BC, the volcanic island of Thera, Santorini, erupted, unleashing tsunamis and ash that devastated Crete's coast and agriculture. The Minoan fleet was destroyed, trade routes collapsed, and famine followed. The psychological and religious shock was immense. How could their goddess allow such catastrophe? The Minoans struggled on, rebuilding palaces, but never fully recovered. Meanwhile, the Mycenaeans on the mainland watched and waited. Around 1450 BC, nearly all Minoan palaces were destroyed, except Knossos. Archaeologists found a new script at Knossos Linear B, an early form of Greek. This reveals that Mycenaean Greeks had taken over Crete, ruling from Knossos and adapting Minoan culture. The vibrant, seafaring Minoan world was absorbed by a new warlike power. The bull-leaping and peaceful palaces faded into history. The Mycenaeans now dominated the Aegean. The Minoan era was over, its mysteries buried beneath ash and conquest. A new chapter had begun, the torch had passed to the Mycenaeans. With the Minoans gone, the Mycenaeans rose to power on the Greek mainland. Their world was one of fortified citadels, Mycenae, Tiryns, Pylos, built for war and defense. Unlike the open Minoan palaces, Mycenaean centers were surrounded by cyclopean walls, so massive they were said to be built by giants. The heart of each palace was the megaron, a grand hall for the king, or wanax. Mycenaean art depicted warriors, chariots, and hunting, reflecting a martial society. Their graves were filled with weapons, gold masks, and treasures, showing wealth and status won through warfare. The famous Mask of Agamemnon and the Dendra panoply armor are testaments to their power. Mycenaean kings ruled through strength and military might. They became the undisputed masters of mainland Greece. This was the world of Homer's heroes. The Mycenaeans were not just warriors, they were skilled administrators and engineers. They adapted Minoan writing into linear B, recording everything from troop movements to offerings for the gods. These tablets reveal a highly organized, palace-controlled economy. The king, or wanax, ruled over a hierarchy of officials, priests, and craftsmen. Palaces collected and redistributed resources, fueling workshops that produced goods for trade and elite use. Mycenaean engineering was impressive: roads, bridges, dams, and monumental tholos tombs like the treasury of Atreus. Their trade network stretched from Italy to Egypt, exchanging olive oil, perfumes, and textiles for metals. This brought immense wealth, but also made them dependent on long-distance trade. Overspecialization and reliance on foreign metals would become a fatal weakness. For now, the Mycenaeans stood at the height of their power, rich, organized, and seemingly invincible. Their world was complex, interconnected, and vulnerable. The stage was set for dramatic change. Around 1200 BC, the Mycenaean world and the entire eastern Mediterranean collapsed. Palaces were destroyed, cities abandoned, and empires fell in a single generation. The causes remain debated. Invasions by the mysterious sea peoples, climate change, drought, famine, and internal unrest all played a part. The sea peoples raided and settled along the coast, leaving destruction in their wake. Severe drought led to crop failures and famine, making complex societies vulnerable. Trade networks broke down, cutting off access to vital metals for bronze. The palace economies unraveled, and people abandoned the cities. It was a domino effect: environmental crisis, migration, social unrest, and collapse. The Mycenaean world vanished, leaving only ruins and legends. The greatest civilizations of the Bronze Age fell together. The Age of Heroes ended in fire and silence. A dark new era began. The collapse plunged Greece into the Dark Ages from 1100 to 800 BC. The great citadels were abandoned, populations scattered, and writing was forgotten. For centuries, Greeks lived in small villages, struggling to survive. Art, architecture, and trade regressed, burials became simple and poor, society became less hierarchical, ruled by local chieftains rather than kings. Yet, the memory of the Bronze Age survived through oral tradition. Stories, songs, and epic poems. Bards sang of lost heroes, mighty kings, and the Trojan War. These tales preserved values of honor, glory, and hospitality. When writing returned around 800 BC, the Greeks recorded these stories, giving us the Iliad and the Odyssey. Homer's poems became a window into the lost Mycenaean world. The Dark Ages were not empty, but a time of cultural incubation. Out of darkness, the seeds of classical Greece were sown. The past lived on in legend, shaping the future. The Bronze Age ended in ruin, but its legacy shaped all of Greek history. The ruins of Mycenae and Tiryns inspired awe and myth, becoming the backdrop for Homer's epics. These stories gave the Greeks a shared identity and values. The collapse of the palace system paved the way for the rise of the polis, or city-state, and eventually democracy. The lessons of the Bronze Age, innovation, trade, and the dangers of overcomplexity, still resonate today. Even after catastrophe, culture survived in stories and songs, waiting for a new beginning. The Minoans and Mycenaeans provided the myths, memories, and foundations for classical Greece. They are the epic first chapter in the story of Western civilization. Their echoes remind us that even in darkness, the seeds of greatness endure. The Greek Bronze Age is a story of resilience, transformation, and the enduring power of memory. From myth to history, their legacy lights the way forward.